I met her on a Wednesday, the kind of day that feels too ordinary to mean anything, until it suddenly does. Her name was Emma, and she worked the morning shift at the small cafe across from my office. She always had this way of greeting every customer like she'd been waiting just for them. "Hey, welcome back," she'd say, even if it was your first time. It wasn't flirty, just warm. The kind of warmth you don't forget in a world that's always in a hurry. I wasn't supposed to notice her like that. I just wanted my coffee and a quiet corner before work. But one day became two, and two became a routine. Soon, she started remembering my order: medium latte, 2 sugars, no lid, right? And I started pretending I had meetings earlier than I did, just so I could stop by and talk for a few minutes. She had this laugh, short, soft, but genuine, the kind that made you want to say something funny just to hear it again. And then one morning, she asked the question. "Hey, can I ask you something?" she said, sliding my coffee across the counter. "Sure. Why don't you have a girlfriend?" I froze. It sounded casual, like she was teasing me, but it landed deeper than that. Because the truth was sitting right in front of me, wearing a coffee-stained apron and a smile that could make bad days bearable. I wanted to tell her, because it's you. Because you're the reason. But I didn't. I just shrugged and said, "Guess I haven't met the right person yet." She smiled, the kind of smile that both heals and hurts, and said, "Well, she's going to be lucky." That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. About her. About how sometimes, we hide the most honest parts of ourselves because we're too afraid of what honesty might cost. A few weeks later, I noticed something different. She wasn't at the counter anymore. The guy at the register said she'd switched shifts. I didn't ask why, but the mornings felt emptier after that. One evening, after work, I found myself walking past the cafe anyway. And there she was, sitting outside, alone, staring into her coffee. I almost kept walking. But something in me, maybe kindness, maybe fate, made me stop. "You switched shifts," I said. She looked up, surprised. "Yeah, just needed some time off. My mom's been sick." The words came out soft, almost apologetic, as if she didn't want to trouble anyone with her problems. I sat down beside her. "I'm sorry, Emma. Is she okay?" She nodded, eyes glistening. "She's fighting. It's just hard to smile all day when you're worried at home." That's when I realized, she'd been the light for everyone else, even while her own world was dimming. So, I started stopping by in the evenings, bringing her coffee for once, or just sitting quietly while she talked. Some days we didn't even speak, we just watched people pass by, sharing silence that somehow felt meaningful. Weeks turned into months. Her mom got better. Her smile came back. And one evening, when the sun dipped low and painted everything gold, she looked at me and said softly, "You know, I used to wonder why someone like you didn't have a girlfriend." "Oh yeah?" I smiled. "And now?" "Now I think maybe, you were just waiting for the right reason." I laughed, the nervous kind, but this time, I didn't hide. "Maybe I was." She looked at me, really looked at me, and for a second, the world went still. Love doesn't always begin with fireworks. Sometimes it starts with coffee, quiet moments, and someone who remembers your order before you say it. And sometimes, it begins with a question that breaks your heart a little, only to piece it back together later in the most unexpected way. She once asked, "Why don't you have a girlfriend?" Now, she doesn't have to ask anymore. Sometimes, kindness leads us to connection. Sometimes, silence holds the truth we're too shy to speak. And sometimes, the person you're waiting for, is the one who's been waiting right across the counter all along.